Hi, Tim Cant here, and in this video we're going to take a look at how to use WavTool's chain editor. The chain editor is a powerful tool that allows you to route audio and MIDI, and it uses an easy to understand graphical interface. With the chain editor you can layer synths, add effects, create groups of audio signals, and much more. Let's start by adding a MIDI track to our empty project with the plus MIDI button. To bring up the chain editor, I double click the track header. This is the chain editor. In the chain editor, we'll find two types of things, devices and portals. Devices make or process a sound, and portals are used to route audio MIDI signals. Let's take this default MIDI track as an example. Wavetable synth and channel strip are devices, and track MIDI and master bus are portals. Red connections between these objects represent MIDI data, and blue connections represent audio data. This might all sound complex, but how it works in practice is pretty simple. I'm going to arm the MIDI track by pressing the arm button, and with a MIDI controller connected, I can play the track. When I play a note, we can see the connection from track MIDI light up to indicate data moving from one object to another. This data tells the wavetable synth what note I want to play. We can see the audio output from wavetable synth lights up the audio signal, which travels through the channel strip and out to the master bus. The wavetable synth's default sawtooth sound is a great starting point for making a synth patch, but it's not particularly pleasant to listen to unmodified, so let's choose a different sound. To delete the wavetable synth, I click on it, select it, and hit delete or backspace. Let's add a different instrument. To do this, I click Add Device, and I'm presented with all of the available devices. To pick a specific category of devices, I click on one of the tabs on the left. I want an instrument, so I select Synth. This narrows things down quite a bit. I want to play a realistic sounding instrument preset, so I click on a Grid Multi-Sampler to add it to the chain editor. I can move this device around where I like by dragging it, and I can connect devices by dragging between them. So let's hook up the track MIDI to the Grid Multi-Sampler's red MIDI input, and route the audio out of it using the blue audio output. The Grid Multi-Sampler has an acoustic piano sound loaded by default, and now it sounds much more pleasing to the ear. We can learn more about a device by expanding the device panel, which I do by clicking it. Now it will display information on the selected device. For example, if I select the Grid Multi-Sampler, I can see all the loaded samples used to make the piano sound, and I can also adjust the instrument's parameters. If I turn up the attack knob, the piano sound will come in more softly. Double-clicking a parameter will return it to its default value. If I select the channel strip, I can adjust the gain, volume level, and balance, stereo position, of the signal. These changes are reflected in the corresponding controls in the track panel, and you can control them directly from here too. Now, let's see how we can use the chain editor to change our sounds in interesting ways. First, let's do something very simple, add an effect. I bring up the Add Device menu again, and this time select the Reverb tab. I add a convolution reverb. To route this into the audio signal, I simply connect the Grid Multi-Sampler to the convolution reverb, then connect the convolution reverb to the channel strip. Now when we play the piano, we can hear that a reverb effect has been applied to it. We can control the amount of reverb in the signal with the mix knob in the device panel. We can change the sound of the reverb by selecting a different preset on the device itself. We can bypass the effect by clicking the bypass button. This allows us to hear the sound without the effect. You can also select a different effect by using the recycle button, which replaces this device with something else. I'll change this to the Reverb 71 effect, which gives us a different sound. You can add multiple effects in this manner. This time let's add an EQ band, which I'm going to route between the piano and the reverb. This means the original sound will be processed before it hits the reverb. I set the EQ to low pass mode, which gives us a more muffled piano sound when we turn down the frequency parameter. Now let's try layering up the sound. I add another grid multi-sampler and connect the MIDI. However, if I try to connect this device's output to the channel strip, it will disconnect the other device chain. That's not what I want at all. So I press Command and Z on Mac or Control and Z on Windows to undo. To combine multiple audio signals, we need to use a combination device. I select the Combination tab and click the Audio Sum device. I route the muffled piano to the first input and add the new grid multi-sampler to the second input. Now I route the Audio Sum device to the channel strip. I set the new grid multi-sampler to the Palm Mute Guitar preset. Now when I play a note, both the piano and the guitar play at the same time. As you can see, the Audio Sum device automatically creates the third input, and we could carry on adding more layers and effects all day. Another way to use the chain editor is with track presets. You can access these from the Add Instrument button. This opens the conductor, where you can select from a list of pre-prepared chain editor setups. These allow you to get great sounds right away, and you can of course edit these as you see fit. Now we've explored the fundamental functionality of devices, let's see what we can do with portals. We can use portals to create a sidechain compression effect. Before we add any portals, we need to create a sidechain trigger and make a simple sequence. I add another MIDI track, delete the wavetable synth, and this time select the drums category and the sampler instruments. I connect the sampler and select the ARC EDM drums preset. I program a chord progression on the instrument track and a 4 to the floor kick pattern on the drum track. For more information on creating sequences, check out the Composing Your First Track in WavTool video. Now we're going to create a portal. I click the Add Portal button, and in the Create a New Portal section, I enter Sidechain Audio as a name for this portal, and select the Sidechain Audio receiver. When I connect the channel strip output to the sidechain audio input, the routing to the master bus remains. The master bus is where the output of all our tracks gets mixed together, but we don't want the signal to go directly to the master bus, we only want to hear what signal goes through the sidechain audio portal. We need to delete the routing to the master bus, and we can do this by holding Option on Mac or Alt on Windows and clicking the connection. Now when we play a note, we won't hear anything because the sidechain audio isn't connected to anything. I click the master to bring up the master bus routing. Let's add our sidechain audio emitter. When I click the Add Portal button, you can see that the sidechain audio emitter device is ready to go. I click to add it. If I need to tidy up the chain editor display, I can click the Clean Up button to make things clearer. If I route the sidechain audio emitter to the Send Sum device, we can now hear our instrument again. Of course, we need a compressor to make our sidechain compression effect happen, so let's add one now. I select the Dynamics tab and select the compressor effect. You can see the compressor effect has two inputs, in and detector. The in input is for our audio signal, and the detector is for the sidechain input. Let's go ahead and route our instrument to the in input and route the output to the Send Sum device, replacing the existing connection. Now we need to route the kick drum track to the detector input. We do this using the same method as we did with our instrument. On the kick drum track, I add a new portal, this time named Sidechain Trigger. This time I leave the master bus connection connected so that we can hear the kick drum. If we delete this connection, the sidechain effect will still work, we just won't hear the kick drum in the master output. On the master track, I add the sidechain trigger portal and route it to the detector input. Now when we select the compressor device, we can see the kick feeding the detector input, both in the chain editor and in the effect itself. Let's turn the threshold down and ratio up in the compressor to make the sidechain compression effect as intense and obvious as possible. Now if we delete the kick drum to master bus connection, as promised the sidechain compression effect is still active, but we can't hear the kick drum in the mix. In this video, we've looked at the basics of the chain editor, but there's plenty more that you can do with this powerful tool, so please subscribe if you'd like to see more tips, tricks and experimentation. You can open this project in the download with Open Project from Zip in the File menu, and until I see you again, have fun!